Hi, everyone. Let's take a look at something that's referred to by two names. The short name is just a stem plot. Some people might call it a stem and leaf plot. What we're going to do is we're going to use a stem plot to represent one variable in statistics. So it's going to end up being very similar to a histogram, but it's a little bit easier just to set up in a hurry. So it's kind of like a scratched out version of a histogram. So what we need is, I'm just going to draw a line here because on the left hand side I'm going to have my stem, and on the right hand side I'm going to put all of the leaves, or the leaves that go in there. Each one is a leaf. It's going to be really easy for me to do with this small set of numbers. My stems are going to be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And the reason for that is all of these numbers are two-digit numbers. So I have a stem that is a 1. So with my stem that's 1, it's basically any number that starts with a 1 and has two digits. And I'll come back to the 0. So the 19, the 14, 13, 16, 15. So I'm going to put those in here. 19, 14, 13, 16, and 15. Notice this really is saying this. Each of these have the same stem, but it's the different leaf that makes it different. So 1 and 9 is 19, 1 and 4 is 14, 13, 16, 15. Hopefully that makes it a little bit clear what this 0 is. The 0 is when there's nothing in the tens place. So numbers like 3, I got two of them right away. 2, 1, 1. It looks like I have a 4 and a 2. So there's my 0 stem. The stem for 2, any two-digit number that starts with a 2. So I've got 28, 22, 20, 26, 22, and 29. So 28, 22, 26, 22, and 29. And then finally, any numbers that start with a 3. So just the 32 is about all I can see there. Now, one of the things that I did as I was kind of putting this stem plot together, just to keep it a little bit nicer, is I always try to write, and you'll notice it's not perfect, I always try to write so that they line up nice and neat, because it really helps you to visualize this as a histogram then. You can see that there are more numbers between 0 and 10 than there are between 30 and 39. As an example here, oh, it looks like I missed one. 28, 22, 20, 26, 22, 29. Looks like I missed this this number right here, the 20. So I'm going to throw this one on the end. They don't really have to be in order. But really what I've got here is a histogram. So I'm just going to take this thing. Let me group these things together here so that I can rotate it. This is typically how we picture a histogram being. And again, the histogram, it's important that each bin, the numbers on the bottom, are the same size. So this one is from 0 to 9. This one is from 10 to 19, from 20 to 29, and from 30 to 39. And you can see how many of each one. So it really is a quick way to kind of turn this into a histogram. So what happens when the numbers get a little bit larger? I'm going to show you two ways to do this scatter plot. Actually, one way I'm probably not even going to get through completely because it would be too long, and it just gives you an idea of the things to think about. When I have this many numbers, I want to think about rounding. So my first attempt, I am going to round to the thousands digit. All right, and I'm just going to quickly write those numbers down, rounding to the thousand digits. So like the first one would be 288,000. But I'm going to pause this while I do that. I'm just going to round all of them for us. All right, so I went through and I rounded all of these to the nearest thousand. I dropped the 3 zeros because it's always going to be the same. So this is 244,000. Now, the problem that I'm going to run into when I draw this scatter plot isn't huge, but hopefully you would realize why I wouldn't want to round it any less than this thousands. I need to take a look because remember, my stem plot is going to basically be like drawing a line right here. So I'm going to need numbers that go as low as what appears to be 23, because I've got a 239, but it's going to have to go all the way up to as high as 310. So I'm going to need all the way up to the 31. So here is what the left-hand side of my stem plot looks like. Now I'm going to go through and put these where they need to be. So I have 288, I have a 244, a 283. So notice I'm just kind of filling it out as I go along. And this is one of the reasons why doing a stem plot is nice, is you don't necessarily have to organize the data ahead of time. All right, so once again, I've finished putting that together, and I have my stem plot. Again, it's kind of like a really quick version of a histogram. If I were to basically, and with a piece of paper, you can just kind of turn the thing sideways. So let me group these things together and turn it sideways and look at it like a histogram. You'll notice I have a lot more 244, a lot from 240,000 up to 249,000. That's what these numbers mean, and that's where people really kind of struggle, is just remembering that this 23 is not 238, 239. This is 230,000. This is 240,000, 250,000 as you kind of go down the line. So that's one way you could do it. You could also, maybe to make it a little bit simpler, let's say I want to round all of these things to the nearest 10,000. Instead of 1,000. So this first one would be 229 or 290, and I'll put the zeros, 1,000 for the first one. Second one, 240,000. And so I'm just going to go through, and this one probably won't take as long because I'm not rounding as far. Okay, now that I have all of these things rounded off, notice again, same idea, but now I don't need as many stems. I just need 2s and 3s. So I don't know that this is a very good stem plot because I have 29, 24, 28, 25, 27, 25, 27, 31. This plot doesn't help quite as much because it's not, all of the data is just kind of being lumped together. I suppose for the final thing I could try and round it all the way up to the nearest 100,000. But then I would just have, it would either be a 2 with a 0. My whole stem plot would be this. I would have a bunch of zeros because I'd be rounding it just 2 or 3. So all of them would be 0. So you'll notice if I make the numbers too small, if I would have only rounded up to here and cut them all off there, I would need way too many different stems. All right, if I round it too large, then I don't have enough stems to be useful. But that is how a stem plot works. The only other thing, just to kind of keep in mind, and I'll jump back up here, is instead of having 0, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put 2 of each of these numbers. And what that's going to say is anything between 0 and 4 goes up here. So 3 and 3. This would be basically saying 10 to 14 and then 14 to 19. So the 9 would go here, the 8 would go here. Basically, if it's 5 or bigger, it goes in the second one. And it's the same stem plot that I really had before. It's just split into like counting by 5. So the only difference between these two is really the fact that this is 0 to 4 and 5 to 9 and 10 to 14 and 15 to 19, whereas over here this is 0 to 9, this is 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39. So that's another option that you have. So you just need to think about where do you want to round with a stem plot and do you want to split the stems.